Oh, how to build a pub.
Oh, hello, and welcome to the Build Up podcast, with me, Alex Ravenhall, the only person to get stage fright on the phone. The Build Up podcast is a spin-off of my original series, Social Isolation. I invite guests onto the podcast to, as the name suggests, build their own pubs, from what they have on draft, to what food they serve, to what music they have playing, and hopefully get them to share with me some anecdotes and thoughts on the institution that is the public house. I'm going to be releasing these every week on a Sunday for the foreseeable future. If you can't wait that long, you can also find all 11 episodes of Social Isolation on this very channel. Special thanks also to Sam Nason for the graphics and Jack Pethram for the jingle. Today, I'm joined by, that's right, you guessed it from the title, Ozzy Ozgun, who's going to build a pub so magical, good old Harry Potter himself will pop in for a pint. I did mess that up, but hopefully that no one will notice. Now, whilst me and Ozzy will be talking about alcohol a lot, like the legends we are, we're not glorifying it, because that's wrong. Great. Now my mum's happy, bob on some earphones, start the treadmill, and enjoy this episode in the Build Up a Podcast.
Oh, how to build a pub.
Okay, let's start as we mean to go on by introducing my brilliant guest today. My guest is back after we had some lovely chats about acting. Since then, we've been doing, if I'm honest, very little. I mean, apart from seeing each other in Birmingham, which was lovely, we're waiting for the world to restart to get going with our pub and club visits. But in the meantime, here to pitch his dream pub is the delightful Ozzy Ozgun, not Ozzy Osman, because Osman is his first name. Hello, Ozzy, how are you?
Hello, Alex. Thank you. I love my name.
I always call you Ozzy Osman, even though they're synonyms, aren't they? It's a nickname.
As long as it starts with O, you're basically there, so it's fine.
It is very confusing, the two O's.
Sorry.
How's lockdown been?
It's been alright. It's been up and down and here and there. As you said, we were in Birmingham for a bit together. And then you left, and thanks for that. It was fine. You left me with other people. I'm back home for a bit, and then I'll head back to Brum in a few weeks. It's been alright.
Are you staying long term in Brum when you go back, or is it just another visit?
I'll be there for 3-ish weeks. I'm kind of doing like 3 weeks here, 3 weeks in Brum.
I mean, to be fair, kind of you need to break it up. I'm looking at going to France next week, so that'll hopefully break it up quite nicely.
Bonjour.
Ah, oui. What do you miss the most? Like, what are you looking forward to doing once? I know, like, pubs are open and stuff, but it's not quite the same. I've been, and it doesn't feel like, bumping into or saying hello, as it should be, But what are you most looking forward to becoming completely normal again?
I think I will look forward to just the freedom of being able to do spontaneous things again.
Yeah.
Like the ones where you're just sat at home, it's like, what are we doing tonight? Absolutely nothing. Do you want to go to the pub? Yeah, let's go to the pub. I love those spontaneous, I think spontaneous nights out are the best, in my experience. So I can't wait to get that
I'll tell you what,
again.
you are completely true with that. That is such a good shout. Like, it's not even, like, the events itself, it's the spontaneity of it that I think is the fun.
And then you meet people and it's great, and I can't wait to get going again.
It's like the one I think about that is after we had rehearsals for Departure, and I was going to Edinburgh at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, we finished rehearsals at 10, so I was leaving in 6 hours, and I was like, okay, get yourself home. Try and get as much sleep as you can, pre-make some sandwiches, get up and ready to go. And we were at yours till 2 o'clock in the morning, very much off the back of something. And what's strange about that is the brilliant Lucy Clark was the one spearheading it, and then she didn't come to yours. So I was there fairly drunk with going home, knowing that I had genuinely, I think, 1 hour and 50 minutes to sleep before I was back up and at them on the way to the train station, which was fun. But it was spontaneous, and it was a lot of good. It was a good time.
Very spontaneous, and you didn't want to come, and then you came, and you kept saying about every half an hour, "Oh, I really should go. I've got this thing the next day, and I've got to be on the train." And I was like, "Okay, go then." When you didn't.
I didn't. There is no question of peer pressure. It's more my own lack of will that I think was the problem there. But we don't care about drinking not in a public house. We care about drinking in a pub, Ozzy. So I'm going to start with a little teaser. What is the pub to you? What I mean by that is, for me, it's quite a homely place. It's a place where I go and see friends. Is it for you somewhere where you kind of pre-drink? Like, what do you want from a pub? What is a pub to you?
I would say a pub to me, I think it can be, what I love about a pub is it's so flexible. It can be something for prees and then you go out, although most of the time I end up staying the whole night there. You can go with friends, you can go with family, it can be anything. I can't think of anything like it really. And it's also quite like a British thing, I think, the pub. I don't think other countries have this environment where it can be so personal yet public.
I agree there because, of going to abroad to pubs, it's so much more about the drinking and it's kind of like flashy bars and things. Obviously, it depends where you go. More tourist areas are going to have the side places. But I've never found any kind of like homely pubs that we have here. I love the pub, and it's something I didn't go to many when I was growing up, but definitely in my more later years in life. Good save, Ozzy. Only after 18.
I have really enjoyed it because you just have so many great times, and it's what we were saying before. It's the spontaneity. That is a word. Yeah, spontaneity, and just the flexibility of it. That you can be like, okay, let's go to the pub. We might go on to somewhere else afterwards, or maybe we're just going to stay there all night and have a whale of a time.
Do you believe in the phrase "let's go out for one drink"? Do you believe it can ever only be one drink? I've never managed it. I've managed a drink and a half lager. That's the closest I've got. So like 1.5 drinks, but never the one.
No, I have never in my time gone for one drink and come away with one drink. And I don't know many other people who have. Because you go, and it's not even like a peer pressure thing of like, oh, you must drink. It's just you just get lost in the atmosphere. You're having a great time. It's like, yeah, why not? My round, who's buying?
Well,
That doesn't make sense.
Speaking of that, which is a dangerous game, buying rounds, I'm quite interested to know. Because I'm so frugal with drinks that I don't have many of these good stories. But what is like the single most expensive drink you've ever had? And with that, it can either be just like a ridiculously expensive cocktail, or we had Alistair on. I had Alistair on, and he said like a £5 VK, which actually hurts my brain to kind of process. So either or, like, what's the most expensive drink you've ever bought? Would you say?
Well, you see, pubs in London are quite expensive anyway. That's the thing. It's like a lot of the time you're going to get a beer, and it will be about £5. Which
is this in Coxbottom? Cockfosters. Oh, no, because I remember saying the thing about the. I was saying to Ozzy that does he get a lot of stag do's where he's from? Because I thought it was called Coxbottom, but no, Cockfosters. Sorry. Carry on.
I'm sure there's a place called Cockbottom, but it might be a different kind of place. I don't know. So drinks here are generally quite expensive. I remember once I was at a pub. What's it called? Funny enough, it's called the Cock Inn. And it was, what was it? I think it was about £8 for a single gin and lemonade.
Jesus Christ.
Which I think is quite expensive.
I think that's expensive for a double, if I'm honest. That's ridiculous. Was it like nice gin, or was it just like Gordon's?
I think it was just your bog standard. I mean, I can't really tell you what it was exactly, but I'm not the type to be like, yes, I want the most expensive gin. I'm usually, give me something cheap and cheerful, but cheap and cheerful wasn't that cheap.
No, the Cock Inn don't do cheap and cheerful, unfortunately. They do horrifically expensive. Fantastic. That's enough chit chat. Hope you're very warmed up for your interview. Well, actually, your pitch. Here we are, Ozzy. Welcome to the pitching room. We're currently in my redecorated bedroom. I hope you appreciate that. I redecorated it just for this podcast.
It looks so amazing.
Yeah, especially just the white wall that you could see in the window.
I love a big white wall. What you've done with it, Alex, is remarkable.
I'd show you the whole place, but like I've got a very intricate setup using like glasses, cases, pillows to like try and get the sound as perfect possible. If I move you at all, everything just goes completely kaput. But yes, so welcome to my newly refurbished room. And Ozzy, you are pitching your dream pub. you're basically looking for money to make. Well, you've got the pub, but you want to make it the best pub you possibly can, your dream pub. And to do that, Ozzy, you need someone to invest, and it's your pub, so you've gone to the person you believe will get the most out of your pub. Ozzy, who have you gone for?
I've gone for a man who I know he's got some bob behind him, so he'll be able to, put some money into it. I know he's quite hard to please, but I think I've got a good concept here. And I know he's got some experience in running a pub because he's been doing it on EastEnders for a while. And I would like to pitch to Danny Dyer. Because I think it would be amazing to invest in my pub.
I mean, when you think of a pub, you think of Danny Dyer. I think that's a very opportune. You've gone for a pub man. He's not a club man. He's a pub man.
I'm sure he's been to many a pub in his time.
What do you reckon his go-to drink is? Like a stout lager, like something quite like a heavy lager, I think.
Heavy and earthy, and so you're like that kind of thing.
So you drink it and you go, yeah. It really gets down your throat. I love that.
That's the one.
Fantastic. So Danny Dyer, he's rocked up in his automobile. He's closed the door of his automobile and he's looked up and he sees your pub. And the first thing he sees, obviously, is the name of your pub. It's a very important thing, the name of the pub. It's your local, It's the name that people refer to it by, obviously, because it's the name of the pub. So, Ozzy, what have you gone for? And then give me a little bit of a description of how you want it to look. Is it kind of like a old cottagey? Is it like in the middle of a city? Give me a bit of a description of your pub.
So I've kind of gone for the whole. It's sort of like a traditional pub, but with like a modern sort of feel to it. So it would be in the city, but it would be old in the layout and stuff of it, if that makes sense. It's called the Old Oswald because I love alliteration and the letter O, obviously. Oswald is a nickname first given to me by my uncle.
Which is weird because it's longer than your name.
I know. I go by many a thing, Alex, as you know from the introduction.
Yeah.
First came to me by my uncle, and then since I went to Birmingham, lots of people have started calling me Oswald. I'm like, okay, it's like a whole other alter ego. So yeah, officially it's called the Old Oswald, but then people will be like, should we go down Old Oz tonight? Which I think is just a bit cooler.
Yeah.
And then there would be like a picture outside hanging out by the front door, and it would be a portrait of me, and it would be, but I would be dressed very sort of old-fashionedly because it's Old Oswald. I would have a monocle and a cane, and just be looking into the distance, looking really wise and smart.
Looking very wistfully into the distance. I really like that. That's a nice vibe. You've got a very good face for a pub. What's it called? Like a symbol?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called. It's not a logo, but it's a.
It's like the picture for the pub, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's usually like hanging outside the front door.
Yeah. And it flaps, doesn't it, in the wind?
And it flaps, yeah. I'm doing that with my hand, but I realised you can't see that.
Got to always put those descriptors in. Fantastic stuff. I think Danny likes the look of the place. First things first, he walks in. We're very much, from the basics here, but as he's walking in, Ozzy, he notices outside the door a little blackboard, and like many pubs do, you got a little message on that blackboard. A little maybe it's a bit cheeky, maybe it's just telling them the deals that are on. But he sees that blackboard message and he makes a judgment straight away. What judgment he's going to make, Ozzy? What message have you got on there?
I've got the message, which was actually at the start of this year, way before I heard about this podcast. Obviously, this was meant to be the mantra for my year, but then Corona came and sort of thwarted that. But it's basically, if it's going to be a laugh, do it. And I think if that's on the blackboard outside, I think people will see it and be like, do you know what? I'm up for a laugh. Let's go in and have one. That
is a fantastic... And once again, it goes back to that, and I'm going to try and say the word again, spontaneity that we were talking about. Because, I think that's a real good vibe to imbibe into what you want to do, what your pub's doing. I think Danny Dyer... He always does stuff for a laugh, doesn't he? That's been his whole career. That's how he got onto EastEnders. It'll be a laugh. Goes in.
Exactly. And now he's earning hundreds of £1,000s a year to run a pub. It'll be basically me.
Which he's going to invest into your pub. It's amazing. Fantastic stuff. So he sees that and he goes, All right. I will be attempting a Danny Dyer accent throughout the whole podcast. I'm just warning you ahead of time.
It's half the reason I picked Danny Dyer.
And he walks in, and what do you do when you go into a pub? You go and get a drink. So he walks up to the bar, you're behind the bar, you know he's coming, you're a bit nervous, but you know, you're wiping down the surfaces, you see him, and he walks up to you, and he orders a drink. And the first drinks he sees are your drinks on draft. You've got 4 drinks on draft, you've got 2 beers and 2 ciders. Ozzy, what have you gone for and why?
So for the beers, first up is my favourite beer, and you don't get it in many pubs because it is a bit more expensive, but it's called Estrella.
Yes.
In Birmingham, the Bristol Pear does it. Part of the reason why I like knowing it, it's a Spanish one. It's just very silky and very nice. It's not too heavy, but it is a bit spenty. So my next one would be a Carling, because that's just classic. You know, you go for the posh one, then you just get a few Carlings and you'll be all right with it all.
Basically, so me and you can go. You can get your shot, I can get my car, and we'll be merry.
Exactly. And then for the ciders, I've gone for the classic dark fruits because everyone likes that. And I'm a man of the people, Alex. I like to please everyone. And I've also gone for, I don't know if you can get it on draft, but obviously Danny's got a few money behind him, so he'll be able to get it. It's very specific. It's the pineapple and raspberry Old Mount cider, which you usually get in a bottle, but it will be on draft. I had that for the first time when I went with my nan to the pub her family used to own in London, and it was a revelation because it was almost like a cocktail, but it's a cider.
Pineapple? That's
Pineapple
interesting. I've never even heard of a pineapple cider. What we need to do is, when obviously we're back in university, the Bristol Pear have an eclectic collection of ciders. Like, they've got those, I don't know what they're called, like Maori ciders or something. They've got absolutely loads. We should have a tasting session. But rather than, spitting out, we just get loads of halves and just get horrifically drunk. Your granny's family ran a pub. That's quite interesting.
Yes. So my nan's parents, my great-grandparents, we used to own pubs in London, in the West End. And there was one called the Salisbury, which is still open today. You can go and visit it, although it's not in the family anymore. And it's by, I should have researched this before, it's by a theatre. I will find out what theatre it is. And basically it's where my nan grew up. And it was great because she could meet all the big stars from back in the day. People like
it was next to the theatre.
And Michael Caine, big stars of the day, would all come from the theatre and then go into the pub, and they knew my great-grandparents and had that fun experience. So good for her.
That's incredible. Does she know the new owners? So, like, do they go, oh, it's the old hand, it's Ozzy's nan?
No, she doesn't.
Oh, that's a shame. Still, that is a very cool little story. That's the first, like, utterance of anyone owning a pub on this podcast. So it's a very positive. Danny thinks, it runs in the family. He's very excited about that.
Noel Coward Theatre, I've just seen. If you go to the Noel Coward Theatre in London, the Salisbury is literally right opposite. And I know Danny's a fan of Noel Coward, so maybe he'll want to go and visit.
Or maybe he was going to the theatre and he actually saw your pub. No, that's not your pub. That's a Salisbury pub. Never mind. I'm getting my hairs crossed, Ozzy. Fantastic options. Out of those, what's Danny going for? Because I can see him easily being a Carling and an Estrella man. Because I feel like his whole life he went for the Carling, but now he's got a bit of dough. He can just get what he wants.
Yeah, so I feel like he'd go and he'd walk in and he'd get the Estrella just to prove that he can buy it. But then after a couple of points, I think he'd go back to the Carling because I think he's quite proud of where he's come from, you know. So
yeah, I agree. I think he's like first 2 pints Estrella, then a Carling's all night. I need to have a fair few, I feel.
Oh, a fair few. He can handle his drink.
Now, his daughter's joined him, also called Danny Dyer, which makes it 10 times easier for me. And she's said, "Oh, Dad, can I have a drink?" He goes, "Of course you have." And she goes, sits down, and no, she stays up at the bar. Let's get the story right, Alex. And she goes, she asks you for what wines you have. Now, unfortunately, you're very low on wine, but you do have your house red and your house white. Which ones have you gone for, Ozzy?
So I've gone for my red, I don't really drink red wine, but I've gone for a Shiraz, purely because there used to be a character on Holby City called Serena, who would basically have a bottle of this in her desk and would take it out at the end of every shift. And I think it kind of represents the working person's drink, like a more sort of middle class working person's drink. He would come in at the pub after a hard day's in the doctors or whatever middle class people do, and so like a glass of Shiraz.
Can I say, my favourite thing about that was like a hard day in the doctors. So middle class people aren't doctors. They just stay in the doctors all day complaining about things. They're just, basically what Ozzy's saying is the middle class are hypochondriacs, which is true.
Yeah.
They have the time to be.
So that's my red wine, and that's the story behind that. And then for the white wine, I've gone for the Pinot Grigio, because I think it's just the classic. Lots of people like that. My family all like that, so I've gone for the Pinot Grigio for the white.
From an investor's perspective, as I am Danny Dyer, I always, like, when I ask this question, I think about, because I used to work in a theatre bar. I don't know why I struggled on that word. And they had Shiraz and Cabernet Sauvignon and Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc. So if someone picks those ones, I usually think, they've got a good mind for business because they're picking the popular ones, the ones that sell the best. So Ozzy.
Yes, thank you. This has been really thought out, Alex, you know. I haven't just done this on a whim. I know my stuff.
Now, I think young Danny, female Danny, is going to go for the Shiraz. I think she's in for a Shiraz tonight.
I think she would.
Now, Danny's already finished his Estrella, just as his daughter was ordering, and now he wants to sample everything. You know, it's a big investment, and it's not that he just wants a strong drink, but he's asked for your spirits. Now, as every pub does, Ozzy, you have 3 spirits. They could be 3 types of gin, or they could be like a vodka, rum, tequila, whatever you want. What have you got?
I have, so first up I've got vodka, because I think most pubs should have vodka, really.
They should.
That's definitely the first spirit I remember having when I was younger. It was at my friend's 18th. I was younger than her. I was only about 16 at the time. Drink responsibly, kids. So I'd go for a vodka. I'd also go for a gin. Gin is something I've had at uni for the first time. It's quite nice. You know, it's quite a thing.
I like it if it's got a strong mixer. I don't actually like the taste. I think it tastes of rotten carrots, I'm not going to lie to you. But I think with a good mixer it works.
What would your mixer be for gin? Because I don't like tonic.
I hate tonic. I've never liked tonic in my life. Yeah, I would go for a lemonade.
Horrible. Yes, gin and lemonade, a gin-and-ade, if you will, is magical.
Oh, I've never had it, but I think it would be perfect. Gin and appetizer.
I've never thought of that.
Especially if you've got like a flowery, like an elderflower gin or something. I think it would work so nicely.
I think, Alex Ravenhall, when we are back together at some point, sounds like we're a boy band reuniting. When we reunite, we will have a gin and appetizer.
I just think it would work. We'll make our own, obviously. We're not paying ridiculous appetizer prices in the pub.
Oh no, don't be silly.
But yeah, we'll make that work. Fantastic, Ozzy. So you've got a gin, a vodka. What's your third one?
My third one would be tequila.
Tequila. Can't go wrong with the tequila.
I think that's the best one for shots. And you know, if people come into my pub for a fun time, they want to do some shots, get the tequila with the lime and the lemon and the... Is it
silver spoon, salt.
I don't know what it is. Try it with sugar, maybe it works. And I think it's just fun. It's just fun. I remember doing my first one. It's like, ooh.
It's just so much going on, isn't it? I just remember getting really stressed out because it was too much was going on, and it felt like too much of a challenge. It felt like it was like a forfeit for something rather than enjoyable experience. But I do like it now. I've grown to tequila. Do you like Desperados?
I don't mind a Desperado.
I think it's good. It's weird how close it is to Corona, because Corona is just a light beer, but they taste very, very similar. Also, both work well with a little bit of lime.
Yes, a little bit of the... Yes, I agree, 100%.
Lovely stuff. I think Danny's going to go for... No, go on, you're the barman. He's asking for your recommendation.
We're talking about Danny Dyer, male father.
Male father spirits.
I think he would definitely want vodka.
Straight.
I think, yeah, just to prove how much of a hard man.
Yeah, I agree.
And then he might have it with some coke afterwards.
Yeah. No, he'd have them in separate glasses. So you'd have like a full glass of vodka and then like a chaser of Coke. So like a shot of Coke and a full thing of vodka.
That's how Danny would do it, 100%.
Now, small Dyer, she always buys drinks twice at a time. As we know, it's the best way to do it. And she has noticed, Ozzy, a poster on the pillar next to their bar. And it's got loads of colours, it's got big popping letters, and it's got, in the middle, a cocktail. But not just any cocktail. It is the old Oswald's signature cocktail, which is completely original, isn't it, Ozzy? So,
completely original.
What is it? And do you reckon Danny Jr. would enjoy it?
I think Danny Jr. would love this. I've definitely not stolen this idea off this morning. It's the idea of a cake tail.
I'm listening.
Yes, I'm about to blow your mind. So, picture a long glass that you'd have a cocktail in or something, and you basically put elements of a cake in, but you soak the sponge in like rum or different spirits, and then you have infused cream on top and stuff like that. So it's like a cake, but it's a cocktail.
So is it edible?
It's edible, and you can have it with an extra shot of more alcohol if you really want to have a fun time. And of course, that would be on the house for Danny Dyer's daughter. But I think that's an incredible concept. I would have the Oswald special, and it would be like a trifle.
Yeah. What's in your trifle then? Like, let's go for ingredients and then alcohol.
Yeah. So we'd have obviously there'd be some fruit at the bottom, and it would be in jelly, but I'd make it a vegan option as well because we have to be inclusive. Of all. On top of that would be sponge. And then there's a little bit of custard and a little bit of cream.
Oh, delightful. And then what alcohol is you going to infuse in?
So with the sponge, I would soak the sponge in rum. That would be nice. And then I don't think you could do it in the custard maybe, but definitely the cream, I'd put a little bit of tequila, just as a little mix. And I don't know how well tequila and rum go together. But with the
They're both quite like... I feel like a dark rum would work. Yeah. A dark rum and a tequila.
I think that would be a delight. And then you can have a shot on the side of anything you want.
And that would all be in the same price?
Yes.
I like that. See, you know, like, it's a bit different, but at the same time, you can have a shot.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, Danny Jr. is definitely 100% going to go for that. It sounds incredible. She'll go for I don't think she's vegan, so she'll go for the gelatin jelly. And she'll have a great time. Now, usually at this point, they've looked at your drinks and I send them off to a booth, but I just feel like Danny would stay at the bar. Danny Senior, this is. And just, have a natter along. So you continue, you serve some other people, but he's by the bar, he's asking you lots of questions, questions I can't be asked to ask you. So you're getting on and stuff. And then he just, about 20-30 minutes go by, and he looks around the room. You can tell he's thinking because he pulls a really hard thinking face when he thinks Danny Dyer. And he turns to you and he goes, I like this place, but I don't really get the vibe. So what I want to know from you, Ozzy, is what is your best pub experience? Because then I know, as a landlord, you're going to be trying to make everyone else feel that, get on that level. Do you know what I mean? And that's the last time I'm doing the accent throughout the whole podcast. So, what I'm trying to say, Ozzy, is what is your best pub experience so that Danny knows what you're trying to invoke in your own pub?
I would say my best pub experience, and this is a hard one because I've had lots of different experiences with different groups of people. But the best overall one, I think, is last summer. Yes, last summer. I assistant directed on a play, and the venue. I think I may have mentioned this on the other podcast. So apologies if there's a little bit of crossover. It was a theatre that was above a pub, and that was great because every night after the performance, me and the director and the other guy, Simon, I don't know what he was there. Sorry, Simon. We'd go down to the pub afterwards for drinks, and then that's where we had the afters. And it was just such a good experience because it had that spontaneity in a bit, because we'd be like, are we going to have a drink tonight? Nah, probably not tonight. There was one night when Nick, the director, had somewhere else to go. He was like, let's go for a few. And then a few turned into some more. We got home really late. But it was such a great time because we had all that fun doing the play and then brought that energy down to the pub afterwards. And there was other people in there. We were laughing with the barman and it was great. And they served Estrella, which is the most important thing. So the Gatehouse pub/theatre was a wonderful experience, and I hope to go there again someday.
I mean, that was a perfectly well-rounded story. You know, you got the Estrella in there, you got a good pub experience in there, and once again, it's the word of the show. It shows that spontaneity that we're looking for in our pub experiences. Fantastic stuff. And once again, that's a great story. Just repeat everything that you've already said about your pub. So it was a lovely, well-rounding. I think Danny's a big fan of narrative. He's a big fan of direction. So he's really gone for that. Yeah, it's very much one of his stories. I feel like if he ever did theatre, I don't know if he did. Maybe he did in his early days. That was definitely for him. You know, he'd go to rehearsal, he'd do a show, and he'd go for after show drinks every single time. Fantastic. Now, Danny Junior, she's been eating away at this cake, and I don't know if you have this, but when you have a little bit of food, like I get really hungry afterwards if I haven't eaten for a while, and the same thing's happened to little Danny Junior. So what has she done? She's looked at your food options. She pulls out the menu. On that menu is 3 options. Now, there's something I haven't told you, Ozzy, which I always mess up when I do this, because I try and make it work for like the person you've picked, but it just comes off sounding really shit. But here we go. So Danny Dyer back in the day was in a play called Oops, Honey, I Lost My Time Machine. It was a very funny play. It was a comedy. Danny Dyer was very into his comedies back then. And obviously... in the play, the reason the play failed actually was because the budget went all over the shop. It was they kept everything under budget apart from they spent 2.8 billion on a time machine, which just, once again, like you're never going to keep a budget when you're buying an actual time machine. But the one benefit Danny got was because he's such a big name, he actually stole the time machine and kept it. So what I'm trying to say, Ozzy, is that for your 3 meals, you can pick a meal from any time in your life. So it could be just 3 basic meals that you enjoy, or it could be specific meals to ones that you've had. For instance, like maybe a fish and chips you had when you were 4, or a hamburger you had when you were 7. It could be that specific, or you could just completely ignore that annoying side bit and just carry on as you were. So Ozzy, what 3 options have you got on your meal?
Thanks for that wonderful story, Alex. I never knew about this play that Danny died.
I do a lot of improv, actually, as you could probably tell from the storytelling there.
Yeah.
Yes.
You should do some more comedy, Alex. I don't know if you've done it in the past, but I think it kind of suits you. Wow. So anyway, back to the podcast.
I mean, it takes so long to just... basically, what 3 meals do you have is what I was trying to say, Ozzy, okay?
Right. I'm back on track. Okay, so for starter, I'm going for a prawn cocktail because I think that's nice. All my meals, by the way, they're quite classic staples.
Yeah.
Because it's not a gastro or bistro pub that I'm going for, but they do that kind of food, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
So starter, I'm having a prawn cocktail.
Yeah.
No one in particular, just a really nice one. I saw John Turode make a nice one once on the TV, so maybe he could make the prawn cocktail.
Yeah, that'll do.
Something. And then for the main, I'd go for a roast. Now, actually, the time machine may need to come in hand. Go back a couple of years ago.
Thank God.
Only a couple of years. When I went to this... Oh, Alex, if you come to London, you'll love this. It's an Irish pub. An Irish family-run pub with all the classic music. You would love it.
I mean, I'm already there in my head. Continue.
And they did the most beautiful roast beef, and it was literally melted in your mouth. So that would be gorgeous, and I would want them to do it again. So I'd flash back a couple of years, steal that meal and replicate it in my pub because it was wonderful. Well done. And for dessert, which is the most important thing, if you couldn't get from the cocktail, I'm a man of dessert.
I'll tell you what, you've been cheeky because you actually technically got yourself 2 desserts. It was very, very smart move, Ozzy.
I love bending the rules. I would go for an apple crumble and custard because that's probably my favourite dessert. And this is a very personal pub to me, so I'd want to put that on the menu. You know, a little bit of me in Oswald.
Yeah. Even though it's not your name, it's just a random nickname.
That's actually my name.
I like that. I'm not gonna lie, I love it when people go for the classic. I love it when people experiment a bit. They go for some like different options. But I do love. You can't go wrong with a roast, and prawn cocktail is my favourite starter. Sorry, Danny Dyer's favourite starter. So.
Yes, thanks, Danny.
I think they'll both go for the full 3 courses. Apart from Danny will also get Danny Dyer Senior. Christ, this is difficult. I shouldn't have brought her in. I shouldn't have involved her. He will also go for the cake tail as well. Because just keep the drinking going on the side. They don't just enjoy the food; they love the food. They wax lyrical to you about it, and then they finish. And let's say another half an hour goes by. You serve some more customers. You keep an eye out, obviously, because they might be investing. They seem to be having a good time. And then Danny Senior comes back over and he goes, "Oi, Ozzy, we fancy doing something a bit different. So we were wondering what games / or activities you have to offer." So, Ozzy, what game / activity do you have to offer? And you only have one because, fuck it, they're the rules.
So I would have basically a giant. It might have to happen in like the beer garden because it's quite big. I would have a giant Jenga set, but basically on all of the Jenga pieces, there's like a written task or challenge or maybe prize. So you'd pull it out, and it might be a free Estrella for you, Danny. It could be, or it could be, a challenge where you have to try and make friends with someone that you don't know in the pub.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. It would be good fun.
So it's like the basic Jenga game, but a giant version because everything big is fun.
It's fine.
And it would be a great time. I'm getting lost in this, so Alex, please.
No, I'm gonna like. There is something about giant Jenga that makes it a lot better. Like normal Jenga is just like you're stuck in an airport. No, you're stuck. It's like one of those. During you were a kid, right? I don't know if this happened to you, but I had speech therapy when I was younger. Or like just those random doctor's appointments you always got sent to as a kid. But they always had a waiting room, and they had. So these things where it was like a really wiggly line, and you had to put like a little
thread this wooden piece through the wiggly line.
Yeah, and they had it in every single place you went. But they would also have Jenga. So small Jenga just reminds me of those hot, sticky, musty waiting rooms. Whereas big Jenga, it's summer, it's a fun time, it's someone knocking it over who thinks they're cool, it's just laughing at that person. It's just a great experience for everyone.
It's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. Giant Jenga with the challenges thrown in as well, just for extra fun and entertainment.
Now they're playing Giant Jenga, and Danny Jr. comes over to you because she's been tasked with making a new friend at the bar. So she starts, doing the bit, and you're like, oh yeah, and you're talking to her, and then suddenly she just stops and she goes, "Hang on, this song is absolutely amazing. Dad, come in here. Ozzy here has got a brilliant choice of song in his pub." Now, what they don't realise, Ozzy, is you've got yourself a brand new jukebox, but because it's so new, you've only had time to put one album on there, but you've thought about this album so much that you've picked it and you don't need to put any more on there because it is the perfect album for the old Oswald. So what I want to know is, what Danny Dyer wants to know, Senior, is what album you've picked. And then Danny Dyer Jr. wants to know what song is playing because she absolutely bloody loves it.
Well, I struggle with this one a little bit because I have to say I don't listen to many albums.
I'm the same.
In full. I mean, I think the only album that I can say I've listened to a lot and know all the songs is the Michael Bublé Christmas album. But you can't have that playing all year. That would just be silly.
That would be very silly indeed.
So I've bended the rules a little bit again, and I've sort of gone for one of my own Spotify playlists. And it's called Soul Selection, and it's sort of soul music, a little bit of soul jam vibes for any
Soul jammers out there.
listeners out there. Yeah, it's sort of soul music from the 70s and the 80s. And what I love about that type of music is that it can be really upbeat and fun, and a soul jam, but it can also be a bit mellow. For when it comes a little bit later into the evening, everyone's had a few drinks. You don't want to listen to anything too, fast.
Yeah.
I'm trying to mimic fast. And the song that we'll be playing would be one of my favourite songs of all time, and it's called "Your Love Is Lifting Me Higher" by Jackie Wilson.
Fantastic. And Danny Dyer Jr. absolutely loves that song as well. So it was a lovely chance of happening there. Fantastic stuff. So you've got your nice choice of album there. Very good. I think someone else did the Spotify thing, but I can't remember who it was. But it's a valid option. I mean, I'm not an album person either. Mine would be Kamikaze by Eminem, which really is just not a very fun vibe at all, because that's the only album I've listened to. Or Hamilton, one of the two.
Well, yes, that would also be a very good album.
Although putting that on shuffle is very jarring, because the songs go so nicely into each other. When it comes up with another one, it really upsets me. But lovely stuff. Watch it on Disney Plus. I mean, it doesn't need the promotion, but hey ho, that's what we're here for, Ozzy. Hopefully, Hamilton will now get me to endorse them, so I can get a little bit of money from this podcast. Because
get a lot of money.
That's what it's all been about, Ozzy.
I'm here to make you rich.
Yes, exactly. And if we do get the Disney endorsement from this, I might give you like the odd £1, or maybe like some free tickets to some Disney show or shit. Anyway, fantastic. Thank you very much, Ozzy. Brilliant choice. They know everything they need to know, and they've gone and sat in a booth and they've been talking for a little while. And you're thinking you're secretly confident because there's been no hiccups so far. There's been no real clashes of personality. They seem to like what you're selling. So you get called over, finally, to the table. And Danny Dyer Sr. stares at you. And he goes, "You're great." And you go, oh, thank you. And he goes, "No, shut up. You're too good to be true. We don't trust you. We think that you're just an infallible person. How do we know that we can trust you with our money if you're just this golden goose? So what we need you to do is, we need you to show us that you're human. We need you to tell us a story, an embarrassing story, so that we all know that we're all the same, really, at heart, and that we can trust you with our money." Ozzy, what's your most embarrassing story?
So my most embarrassing story may not be embarrassing in the traditional sense. It's kind of a bit of a spin on it. And for the purpose of fairness, because I haven't contacted all of those involved in the story, I will be changing the names, just in case they listen and they think, "Oh, Ozzy, you didn't ask me about that before you said it." So I'm changing the names here.
So it keeps things anonymous, yeah.
Yeah, we love a bit of anonymity.
Mate, we can't. These words that we're struggling with today. Superficiality, anonymity.
Right. Anyway, so the story. So I had been to see a show with a friend of mine who, let's call him Bob. And me and Bob were having a whale of a time. And before we went to see the show, Bob turned to me and he was like, "Oh, Oz, do you want to go for a drink after the show?" And I was like, "Bob, what a great idea. Let's do it." And then after the show, Bob sort of had a bit of a fancy to someone in the cast and had been talking to her before. Let's call her Kate. So Bob turned to me and said, "Oz, would you mind if I were to go for a quick drink with Kate before I caught up with you?" And I was like, "Of course, that's fine, because I'm a good friend." I'm like, let Bob and Kate have their moment. But then Phil was there. Now, Phil was this guy who was sort of friends with Bob, and I had never spoken to before in my life. He's one of those guys that I've seen him around, but I don't really know him at all. And he was there, and obviously I saw Bob looking a bit awkward, and he was like, "Well, you could go for drinks, and then I'll meet you afterwards." I was like, "That's fine. We'll go for drinks, and Bob will see you in a bit." So me and Phil went to the pub for drinks. And like I said, I didn't really know this guy. So much so, I didn't know Phil's name. And it was very awkward because Phil knew me, he knew my name, he knew shows that I had been in recently, but I didn't know his name for the life of me. So we got to the pub, and I was expecting Bob to rock up, any moment. I'm like, right, he's going to have one drink with Kate, and then he'll come and meet us. About an hour and a half later, it turned out that Bob wasn't coming for a while, so I was like, okay. So me and Phil were just having a whale of a time in the pub, and I didn't know his name. Then we went to the other pub to go and find Bob and Kate, and me and Bob went to the toilets, and he was like, oh, mate, thank you, you're such a legend, letting me go for drinks with Kate. Thank you for looking after the other guy. And I'm like, that's fine, I'll do it again, but please tell me what the guy's name is. At this point, Bob collapsed into a fit of laughter and said his name was Phil. Like, thanks, Phil.
God,
so
bloody
that's the
Bob.
most embarrassing story, that I was just entertaining this guy for a couple of hours and I didn't know his name.
Didn't know his name. Well, it's Phil. It's Phil. If you didn't know,
Definitely
it's Phil. That's fantastic. That is a brilliant story. And good use of anonymity there. Just so if anyone was listening, they wouldn't know who's who, or at least no one's getting called out for anything, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Fantastic things, Ozzy. Brilliant story. That is awkward. That's and embarrassing, but as you say, not in the conventional sense. That's a brilliant spin on things.
Not in the, I didn't. It wasn't like a massive. Oh, I've done something silly, or I've been kicked out of the pub or something. I'm quite well kept in pubs, really. But it was just that time. It was he was going on and on at me, and he just kept going, "Oh, was he this? Was he that?" And I'm like, "What's your name?"
There's nothing worse than not knowing someone's name. And chap, lad, mate.
Yeah.
Gallivant. No, that's not the right word. But yes, no, I like that. I think Danny Dyer appreciates a bit of it, because let's face it, Danny Dyer's had a lot of the other type of embarrassing, awkward stories. So he enjoys a bit of a mix-up. And with that, he's happy. You have, Ozzy Ozgun, shit, got yourself your dream pub. You've got an investor. Congratulations. Now, not only have you got a fantastic pub with some eclectic drink options and a fantastic dessert cocktail amalgamation, but because you did so well, now watch this, Ozzy. You're about to be blown away. Danny Dye is going to give you a signing on bonus of using his time machine to be able to get a drink with anyone, 5 people you want, and you can use his time machine and his impressive notoriety to get anyone you want. They can be dead or alive because of the time machine. Friend or foe, celebrity or not, anyone you want. And because it's a time machine, Danny and Danny leave. And as soon as they leave, 5 people walk through the door. Ozzy, who have you gone for?
Right, so this was a very hard question. It's a very long list, and I had to keep whittling it down. So I've gone for 4 famous people and then 1 friend. So we'll start with the famous people, who obviously will become my friends.
Yes.
So first up, we've got Bradley Walsh, because I love the chase and I love Bradley Walsh. I'm waiting for him to be knighted, because Sir Bradley Walsh has to happen.
It has a ring to it, to be fair, Sir Bradley.
It does have a ring to it. I feel like Sir Bradley Walsh would be such a laugh, and he's like that cheeky chappy but a slightly older guy, and it would be such a laugh to have him in my pub. So I have to have him. I love the guy. Next up would be Stacey Solomon.
Love Stace.
I'm a Celebrity and Loose Women.
And Celebrity Gogglebox.
And Celebrity Gogglebox. I adore Stacey. When she was on the X Factor, I did have a bit of a crush on her. I remember back in the day. Still do now in a weird way. She's a great girl, and again, up for a laugh. All of my people are basically fun people.
Yeah.
Because it goes with the mantra of, if it's going to be a laugh, do it. So I want fun celebrities who I think would fit the vibe of my pub. So people who are up for a laugh. On that note, the next one would be a bit of a left field choice. It's Didi Con, who, you won't know the name, but she played Frenchie in Grease.
Great. I thought you said Diddy Kong, as in Donkey Kong's little brother.
No, Didi Con. Give her a Google. I think she's still alive, but just in case she isn't, we have a time machine.
Yes, exactly,
I
yeah.
think she is still alive. I've seen her interviewed in the past, and she is the sweetest woman in the world. And I think it's great to have a nice old lady sat there in the pub and being a bit cheeky. I like cheeky old people,
Yeah.
you know? So we'll have her. And then also, the next up would be... Oh, Alan Carr.
Alan Carr. A very chatty man, so it would be very useful.
A very catty man. We'd like a comedian in the pub.
On the panel.
On the panel. I'm getting all confused there. No, I like him. I think he's funny, and I think he'd be the type to, if you saw people, well, obviously everyone would be having a good time, but maybe if someone's coming to the pub on their own, he'd like go up to them and make sure they're doing all right, and they haven't had too much of a stressful day. Maybe they're one of those middle class people who have been at the doctors all day.
All bloody day.
So Alan Carr would go and keep them entertained. So that would be good. I can trust Alan. So they're my celebrities. And then I thought, right, there's these great people, but I want someone that I know
Yeah.
for reassurance and to make sure everything's going okay. So I did make a list of people who I could trust with this. And I have to say that one other person would be you, Alex.
Oh, gotcha, butter. Oh.
And there is a point to this as well, because it's not just, oh yeah, I could say the whole smushy stuff. Oh yeah, he's my best mate and I trust him and blah, 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 blah. You're not getting that, no.
I don't want it.
For the listeners out there who may not know, me and Alex have had many a random experience together. We've dealt with many strange things. Women who can't part, which sounds really sexist, but it's not, because it was this...
It was the most bizarre thing we've ever watched. Like, she just kept crashing into cars. Like, I've never seen a car crash, and the only one I've seen was literally at half a mile an hour.
It was the strangest thing. We've had that. We've had water balloons most recently. For everyone out there listening, Alex got hit by a water balloon from a moving vehicle, and it was very strange. But basically, Alex, because we have all of these random experiences together, if anything was to go wrong in my pub, I want someone there that is equipped to deal with random events.
I've got the utility to perform that. Yeah, I agree.
Well, there, not just for the reassurance on like a personal level, but also you can deal with any scenario. So please come and look after me.
Also, on that note, it's like if something really random was to happen, I'd need to be there so that we could add it to the list of random happenstances. Oh, I like that. I like your reasoning there as well. It wasn't the and there. It was like, no, I need you I need your random expertise. I appreciate that a lot. That's fantastic. I was going to say that's a fantastic answer, but that's horrifically self-indulgent. Ozzy, it's just the best night ever. We're about 2 hours in. Everyone's lashing praise at you, getting you drinks and things. Now I'm there, so I can actually be myself. Because I've got one little question I'm going to sneak in, if you don't mind.
Oh, go on.
So we're there, we're all chatting, and we're all talking about the pub. And we're all talking about, like, our experiences with alcohol and things. And I just go up to you and I go, Ozzy, I never knew. Can you remember your first ever drink? And that can be alcoholic. That can be either at a party or something, or if you've got more of a memory of, like, your first pub drink. And, like, tell me a little bit about that. Because for me personally, like, I never liked alcohol. Like, I never liked the taste of it, but I drank it. So, like, for me, my first drink wasn't like, oh, yes, it was more like trying not to gag. So I'm just, like, interested in what your first drink was.
I remember the first ever time I had alcohol was by accident. It was on holiday in Cyprus, and I was sat next to my nan, the nan who used to own the pub, and my glass of water was next to her glass of wine, and I accidentally picked up her wine and drank it. I was like, oh, this water tastes a bit funny. But I was quite a bit younger then and obviously didn't like it. I'm similar to you. I was never that big a fan of alcohol for many years. The first drink I can remember having intentionally, I think, was at a house party. It was a New Year's party. I was the youngest person there. I was about 15 at the time, and it was like mainly 20-year-olds. I had a friend, and it was all his sisters, all their friends. And I walked in with a box of Celebrations and non-alcoholic champagne that my mum had given me. And everyone there found that hilarious. And then one of the older girls at the party gave me a homemade cocktail, which was my first intentional drink.
Was it nice? Because cocktails are weird, because like they are supposed to be kind of sweet. So was it okay?
It was. I remember being very strong. Whether that's because it was like my first proper drink, I don't know. But I remember it being quite strong. But yeah, that was my first drink. I'm trying to remember my first time in a pub drinking.
Because for me, it was a big deal. So me and my dad had always said like, oh, we were going to go for my first drink together. So on my 18th birthday, we went to the pub. So I just thought everyone like had kind of like, or like at least a big memory. But so many people were a lot cooler than me and went before their 18. So it was like people buying them drinks. It wasn't as much of a big deal. But to be fair, I'll take that answer. That was a nice little sweet answer there.
Yeah.
It's honestly, the night keeps going on. You're having the best time ever. There's lots of random circumstances that we jot down for another time. And it gets to the end of the night, and everyone's been buying you stuff on that, and you go, right, that's it. I've had such a lovely time. I'm going to buy everyone's drinks. And you get to the bar, and you've completely forgotten to ask them what they want. So, for your final question, Ozzy, what I want to know is what you think all of your guests would drink, including me, so choose your answers wisely. And finally, and these are drinks from your bar. And then finally, what's your go-to drink? Like, what do you drink in a pub? And for this one, you can have options that you've picked, or you can go for something that you haven't. But, like, what is your, like, if you go to a pub, what do you order type of thing? So, what have you ordered everyone else?
Right, what have I got for everyone else? If Danny and Danny Dyers are still there, as we said, Danny Dyer Sr. would be going for the Estrella and then Carling, and Danny, female Danny, would be going for the Shiraz.
Yeah.
For my guess, I think Alan Carr would want something fun. I think Alan Carr would love my dessert cocktail. Mm-hmm. I think he'd be well up for that. With a shot of probably anything on the side. I think Alan drinks anything.
Yeah.
Stacey, I think she's a gin woman. I think she'd go for a gin and lemonade with a dash of lemon in and a little bit of ice. I think Stacey would like that.
I agree.
Bradley's old school. He'd want a pint. He'd have a pint of Carling. He probably would turn his nose up at the Australia. He's like, oh, what's that?
What's that fancy shite?
He'd want the pint of Carling. And then I would get... Who would I get? I get Didi Khan. Oh, bless Didi Khan. I think she'd want the dessert cocktail, but I don't think she'd finish it. So Alan would finish it, and then I'd get her a little glass of Pinot Grigio on the side.
Oh, lovely.
And then Alex, there's a lot of pressure on this.
Yeah.
Alex would be fine. I'm saying this as if I'm not talking to him. Fine with a pint of Carling.
He would. He would be very fine with a pint of Carling.
But I'm pretty sure you would love to try the pineapple and raspberry cider.
I would. It's the pineapple. The pineapple kind of blows my mind a little bit.
So I might give you that, and I'd be like, right, try this. If you really don't like it, I'll go and get you a Carling. But first of all, try this pineapple and raspberry cider.
I think I will, because I'm up for trying new things, Ozzy. I had a Chinese lager the other day, and I very much enjoyed it, and I haven't stopped going on about it since. Finally, Ozzy Osman, thank you for doing the podcast. And on a final note, would you please tell me what is your go-to drink in a pub?
My go-to drink in the pub would be a pint of Estrella if it's there. If not, I would go for probably a Stella.
Ozzy, thank you so much for coming on. I'm just going to do some quick thank yous if you don't mind sticking around. Firstly, to Jack Pethram for the jingle. It's a lot of fun. It's very Jack Pedram. We'll get him on soon. Sam Nason will also get on soon to thank him for his lovely graphics. Thirdly, to all of our digits of fans out there, Ozzy, who are listening in. Thank you so much, guys. And Disney, if you're listening, you know my terms. And finally, Ozzy, thank you again for coming on and being absolutely stellar. It's been a great time. And yeah, I've had a great time. I hope you have, Ozzy, and I hope everyone listening has had a good time listening to the Build a Pub podcast.
Oh, how to build